Well, hello again, everybody. Just wanted to talk a little bit about the Indian All Star selections. The 13 player team was released on Thursday of this week, announced, released, whichever word you want to use. But the 13 player team was announced. Also, wanted to kind of go over a little bit of the process on how this works. And, some of the players I thought, maybe had a good chance to make it, maybe who had put themselves in position you would think to be selected, and actually published a story on that this morning on my list anyway of who I thought could have been included on that. Sometimes we call it a snub list or whatever, but it's I don't know if snub's the right word. It's like you always say, to put somebody on, you got to take somebody off. Certainly none of the 13 players on the team didn't deserve to be on the team. Or they wouldn't be there. But it's always an interesting process. It's always interesting how the selections are received. It's laughing emoji season. I always know when honor teams are released, and it's and I know I get a lot of the feedback obviously from putting the list out, but it's I think people probably understand, or I think most people do. Maybe they don't, and maybe that's why it's good to kind of talk about how this all works. But as the process goes, media coaches are asked to select the Mr. Basketball winner, the second place for Mr. Basketball or Miss Basketball, same process basically, and then list. I think it's 10 Indian All Stars. You go down the list, you rank them in order, and then that is inputted into the All-Star director, Mike Broughton, who they compile all those results. And the Mr. and Miss Basketball is basically, not basically, it is just picked off that vote. Straight vote. You just pick them. The votes are tabulated. That's how you award Mr. and Miss Basketball. And by the way, Mr. Basketball will be announced on April 23rd at our annual sports awards banquet at Butler. So, more information coming on that. That'll be so. As I talk today, it's 11 days from now, so a little bit of time until that's announced. But so anyway, that's all sort of put together in that process, and as far as that vote goes, and then for the Indian All Stars, they're kind of watching all season, Mike Broughton, and then he'll talk to coaches, and then it may get down to the last couple selections, two, three, four, whatever, in the coaches. And this year it's John Peckinpah from Kokomo is the coach, and they will sort of have their input on who should be, as they're making up a 13-player team. That's sort of how that works. Is you want to put together a team that's you think is got the guards, got the bigs, got the wings that can go compete and beat Kentucky twice. That's kind of the nature, and I try to write that as much as I can to educate on how that works exactly. And again, it's debatable on who you pick. I mean, I would have a different list. Anyone would probably have some variances on who you would pick exactly. I don't think there's any year where you're like, oh, that's a 13-player team I would pick. That's understandable on how this all works, but. So that's kind of how it's selected. And then, some of that, the top 60 will go into, there's some effect with that workout. I was not there. I was in Phoenix helping out with the Purdue coverage this past several days. So I wasn't able to make it this year. But did talk to Kip, who runs it, and, talk to some people about how it went. So, you can kind of play your way in. If you're on the bubble or whatever, you can kind of play your way in via that route as well. But again, that's probably, if you're a top 6, 7, 8, 9 guy, and sometimes those guys can't make it, they're on vacation. It could be an injury situation. You may not be able to play in that, so it's not the be all end all. It's not a tryout basically. I saw someone say it's a tryout. It's not a tryout. It's a senior workout, and you get maybe some input from that as well. But anyway, so this 13-player team. You ended up with I think probably who people thought would get in. Jack Benner from Brownstown Central going to Purdue. I don't think there's any question on him. Ended up winning a Class 2A state title. Flory Badunga from Kokomo, McDonald's All-American, two-time Gatorade Player of the Year. Went to a state finals as a junior. Definite was going to be on the team. I think Keenan Garner was the guy from Fishers who going into the year was probably a bubble guy, if that even maybe. And he turned out to be a definite as well. He hasn't committed yet, but has some Division I offers. IUPUI just offered him here recently. But they won state. He seemed like a no-brainer. Evan Haywood from Brebeuf going to Butler had a really good season. Ended up 19.8 points per game. They were right on the edge of making the winning that sectional against Guerin. Lost on a crazy play, but I think he was probably one people all expected to be on. KJ Wyndham from Ben Davis won state undefeated as a junior, had another really good senior year. He ended up fourth on the all-time Ben Davis scoring list. Only Damon Frierson, Henry Williams, and Randy Whitman finished ahead of him. So, pretty good honor there. 1,151 career points, which at Ben Davis, that's hard to do with the competition that there is to play there, really. I mean, that's not many people come in early and score a lot of points. So anyway, Wyndham makes it. Micah Davis from Franklin going to Eastern Kentucky. I think he was a guy, last year as a core all-star, junior all-star. We thought that, going in probably had a good chance, and then had by far his best season this year. He averaged 25.1 points a game, 5.7 assists, 4.3 assists. And Franklin went 18-5 and won a sectional championship. So that, Davis seemed like a for sure. And the other guys, I thought, Aaron Fine, I think, played his way up and became sort of a lock as we went along. He's committed to Purdue as a walk-on, preferred walk-on, but they were 22-3, were right on the edge of beating Fishers in that 1-versus-2 matchup in the sectional championship and lost by 2. So he was right there. I mean, or they were right there, and I think he, with his season and his career, really, he ended up 1,204 points for his career and 252 assists, and shot the ball from three really well this year. His best three-point shooting season, over 41% on the year. Tyler Parrish was another one I thought probably had a good chance to get on, had a good career even up to this year. Went to a state championship as a sophomore. And he was also a core junior all-star last year, and then had a really good season, 20.8 points, 4.4 assists. And they only they were 16-10, so maybe not as big of a season from a team perspective, but they were a team that was kind of a little bit of young at some key spots, and playing in 4A, that can make it tough. But scored over 1,000 points. I think he ended up 13-something for his career and points-wise. So, again, really overall good resume. And then from there it was a little bit, weren't sure exactly which direction they would go on some players. And, some of it was guard, and some was just position-wise. I think Carson Rogers from Kokomo, I thought by the end of the season, he didn't have his best game in the when they got beat in the regional. But overall, he was 17.8 points, 8.3 rebounds, and Kokomo was 25-4, and they really played well. Rogers and Badunga off each other. He was over 65% shooting, and really jumped quite a bit from his junior year as far as production goes. So I thought and he's 6'6", so it gives you another guy inside. Who can play inside for you. And again, you're putting this team together, trying to win games. You need some size and that sort of thing. Trey Buchanan from Westfield, he'll walk on at Iowa. I thought he kind of played his way up. They were 19-3 this season. So good season. Obviously, they didn't play well in the sectional, got beat pretty handily by Noblesville, but a lot of they would win a lot of sectionals. That was a tough sectional. They were a team that, you're sort of, sometimes the team gets a bad draw and they didn't play well and they got knocked out. But he was 14.3 points, over 40% from three, and for his career. And the season. So he obviously gives you some shooting from the perimeter. And he was a sophomore on that team that won a sectional title, the first sectional title in program history. With Braden Smith and Cam Hafner in that group. So Buchanan made it on. And then I'm not going to any specific order here, just kind of talking out loud. But Isaac Andrews from Wapahani, I think, was probably, if they don't make it to state, I'm not sure he gets it, but he had a great year. I mean, they were 26-3, 14. He averaged 24.3 points, 6.6 rebounds, 3.3 assists, and shot threes at a 44.3 percentage wise. So, and he ends up 37th on the state's all-time list. Won the Trester Award. You know, all those things that kind of go into it. And I think playing on that stage in Class 2A, even though they got beat, he played pretty well, and he was sort of got them back into the game against Brownstown. They couldn't quite pull it out, but he was a big reason, obviously, for their success and making the state finals for the first time this year. And then, I thought Jack Miller from Scottsburg, I don't think they make it, or he makes it unless they win state this year. And then he went out and had 32 points in the state championship game. And Miller, he's going to Hanover to play for his dad. I think at his size and skill ability, his dad's getting a steal. So, but he another guy that I think played his way in with the run that they had. Really impressed, Mike Broughton and the coaches who were picking this team. So he ended up 1180 for his career scoring wise. Shot 39% from three as a senior. And, again, I think it's not a one-game scenario. I mean, he's a really good player beyond this one game. But I think, playing that well in that game, I think really helped his chances, obviously. So, Jack Miller made it on. Then Tucker Tornada from Evansville Memorial. He was one that, again, you're looking for size. I think he had a pretty good top 60, sort of played his way into the discussion. And made it on the team. So he's going to Marion. I think he's a guy who can have a really good college career. 16.6 points and 10.2 rebounds. So that rebound number really stands out, and I think is a big reason why he's going to make it. And he was also a double-double player as a junior. So, I think that's one that maybe his name maybe surprised some people as far as making the team. But again, you're looking for guys who can play different roles for you. And some years, he may not make it because you got several bigs or whatever, and some of these other guys too. I mean, it's sort of depending on the team sometimes, the makeup of the team around you. So that is, I think, all of the players on the 13. I think I covered everybody there of the 13. Yeah, as I'm looking over here, I believe I did. So that team, they will play the week of June 2nd. Actually, June 2nd is a Sunday. The juniors will play the Kentucky Juniors down at Scottsburg, and then the Futures game is June 3rd, and I'll have the roster out for the boys shortly on that. That'll be played at HSE. Again, that's a Indiana-specific game, so you're playing against your peers in the state in that one. That'll be freshmen and sophomores this year, so that's different than last year where they also included juniors. That'll just be freshmen and sophomores. In the junior-senior game at Kokomo will be June 5th, Wednesday. That'll be the juniors against the seniors. And then the Kentucky games, June 7th in Lexington. That'll be at Lexington Catholic High School on June 7th, and then back at Cambridge to finish it out on June 8th against Kentucky. So that's kind of the schedule. You can go to Ticketmaster and get all the information for the home games. Ticket information, I don't know for sure on the Kentucky game. In the past, you can kind of show up and buy a ticket. So I wouldn't, we'll have more information on that as it becomes available. Kentucky's a little slow sometimes on the information, and they just recently released their location on that game. It had been in Owensboro the last maybe 3 years, so it's moving back to Lexington now, and we'll see how that goes this time around. But yeah, and some of the discussion yesterday was on, who didn't make it. I kind of wanted to wait a day to put out my list of who maybe had a good chance to make it. You don't want to take away from the guys who do make the All-Star team or girls who do make it. In this case, the boys. But, I thought the number one name to me that stood out was Javon Lewis from Fort Wayne. I was a little surprised. And again, it's harder for guards to make it just because there's more of them. But he was a guy who had his numbers across the board as a senior: 19.4 points, 7.6 assists, 3.8 rebounds, 2.3 steals, and numbers on their face. It's I'm going to say misleading, but everyone plays different styles. Your personnel is different. So you can't just say like, oh, his stats are better than that guy. I mean, that's not reality of how basketball works and different systems work. But I will, in his case, his numbers were good, and he set a school scoring record, 1,492 points. And his team won. They were for the first time since 1994. Last year they won a sectional title. They won their first regional since 1981, and then did it again this year. They were 23-4, reached the 4A semi-state, played Fishers close in a good game, lost by 8 points. And so to me, everything kind of stacked up. But again, I'm not picking the team. There may, reasons, like I said, if you put him on, you take somebody off that probably feels deserving as well. But I really thought he'd kind of earned his way in, didn't get it. That's tough. I know that was kind of the majority of the feedback I got yesterday was about Javon Lewis. So, and I totally get it, because everything you look at would lead you to believe that he should be on the team. So he was definitely number one. I thought Josiah Dunham, Evansville Christian, was maybe number two as far as I thought. Again, these are my opinions, but he's again 6-foot guard. Like I said, it's harder for guards sometimes, just because there's more of them, more guys to pick from. But 24.2 points, 5.1 assists, and his team went 24-3 and won a Class A regional title. And if you hear those bells in the background, it's one of my dogs here. So sorry about that. But and he ended up with 2,373 career points, number 18 on the state's all-time list. And I will say in Dunham's favor, I mean, they beat some really good teams. They knocked off, not out, Terre Haute North, Princeton, Scottsburg, Brownstown, when Jack Benner was hurt. So they had a really good season as a team. I do think in 1A, if they would have made it to the state finals, I think that really would have helped his chance. Maybe needed that type of run. I also had Ron Rutland from Attucks. I think he was probably gonna. I want to say he was gonna make it, but he was definitely in the discussion pretty late in the process, and just didn't quite have the overall numbers of the season sort of that. Got him on the team. So, he's going to IUPUI. I think he's got a really high upside as a player. He can really shoot it. But his overall numbers just weren't quite as strong as they were previously. He was 12.7 points, 2.8 assists, and they were 19-7. Very balanced team. Won the Hall of Fame Classic, won the city for a second consecutive year. And so, again, that's a tough one. I thought Rutland – I really thought when I wrote – I think it was in January on some of the guys who I thought could make it. He was one that I had pretty high on my list. Nick Book from Westfield had a really good, strong season, 13.5 points, 7.5 rebounds, 19-3. I think probably hurting his chances was that loss in the sectional. Didn't have a great game, and also Buchanan making it. I don't know, and I don't know if this is the case necessarily, but putting a second Westfield player on, I think might have been tough just because they didn't get out of their sectional. They didn't win. They lost, like I said, pretty handily. So I don't know. I mean, that's just my own conjecture. But he's 6'8". He could have helped inside for sure. Really good player. Kobe Bowles was another one I had pretty high on my list. He was a really good athlete. I think he's going to have a chance to have a really good college career because I think he's got all that ability, all the athleticism, and he's just a guy I think who he's going to just get better. Probably his outside shooting's the one thing that needs to improve. But again, they were 25-4, right near the top, if not at the top of 4A, basically all season. And he had, I thought he had a good. Maybe his overall numbers weren't quite as strong enough, but you're playing with such good players on your team. You kind of balance out. So you put him on a different team, he might average 20 a game, but 11.4 points, 2.8 assists, 2.7 rebounds, and they did let a late lead slip away in the semi-state semifinal against Jeffersonville, and if they win that game, who knows? They would have been playing Ben Davis for a spot in the state finals. But Justin Sims from Chesterton, I mentioned earlier with Parrish, and kind of maybe a similar situation. Chesterton won 16 games, but can you put a second guy on from a team that didn't get out of the sectional? It might have been tough. He was a little bit inconsistent, but 14.5 points, 7.4 rebounds, and that he played on a state finals team in his sophomore year and finished with more than 1,000 points. So, a lot of things working in his favor. He was another one I thought, if they could make another run, he could make the team. And I thought he was pretty solidly in that mix. But again, some of those factors worked against him. Malachi McNair from Evansville Harrison. I thought he was a sleeper to make it out of Evansville. I had a chance to see him at the Paul Logan Invitational at North Central. Really liked him. They won 20. They were 20-5, won a sectional championship, and he averaged a double-double. He was about 18 and 11 on the season, and shot at a really high percentage from the field. I really liked his game quite a bit, and I was, kind of hopeful for him because I just thought he was a good player, and maybe didn't get the recognition that was warranted. I'm not saying not saying they missed or didn't look at him, but just a good player. Jake Smith, 6'6", Lake Central, and he was a guy I think was maybe off the radar slightly, and then they got off to a really good start. And he showed he's a versatile player. Like I say, 6'6", 16 points and about 9 rebounds, 4 assists a game. He was on the Supreme 15 Senior All-State team, and they kind of slumped at the end of the year though. They finished 18-4 and lost in the sectional, so they were off to such a good start. I thought he might play his way in. A couple others. Jackson Bell, I know, had a really good top 60, and he's going to Army, Division I player. His versatility, I think, is something that works in his favor, and I think he would have fit in really well in this team. 12.2 points, 4.9 rebounds. Again, very balanced team, and they were 15-9, lost in the sectional to Lawrence North. But Bell's a guy I think who is definitely in the discussion. Then Cody Clancy was one too. I definitely feel for him as Scottsburg wins state, and his teammate makes it. I'm sure he's happy for him. But Clancy was really averaged 20.6 points and shot 46% from three, and 6'4", good size. He was second all time in scoring at Scottsburg with 15.56 as far as points go. So, just a really good player. Again, a big reason why they won a state championship. So I thought he was deserving of mention. Then I had 5 others. Peyton Barrett of South Bend Riley, Josiah Gustin of Pendleton Heights, Jackson Pardon of Carroll, Fort Wayne Carroll, Joey Schmitz of Center Grove, Terry Howell of Evansville Bossy, and there's a few others I think too that probably you could put on that list as well. But yeah, I mean that's gone a little bit longer than I expected to here, but just wanted to talk about the Indiana All-Stars, kind of the whole process on how it works. I know, some people, it's just every year, people just don't know, or don't pay attention. I totally get it. So I just want to try to, educate as much as I can on how this works and what the process is. And, I think transparency is always a good thing in any line of work. So if you have any questions, let me know. Drop them here or, send them, email me, or I've got a voicemail too. If you have my cell, text me. But yeah, so just wanted to touch on that. Again, they'll play. The Indiana All-Stars will play in June against Kentucky. Mr. Basketball will be out April 23rd at our banquet, so that's coming as well. I know there's some other things coming up as far as basketball goes. I'm a little late, like I said, on all the super team stuff and postseason basketball because I was helping out with Purdue, which, again, a lot of fun. It's kind of like covering an old Indian All-Star, Indian All-Star experience or something with all the in-state connections that they have. And so that was a lot of fun to cover that team and see them make it all the way to the the national championship game and play on that stage, make a Final Four for the first time in 44 years. And I know a lot of Purdue fans had a lot of fun out there because we saw a lot of them, and they definitely outdistanced the other 3 teams by quite a good margin. So very cool experience. So obviously move on now to the portal and all of the postseason stuff, and we'll see how they come out next year and how these players develop. They have 6 new players coming in, not from the portal, but from the high school ranks. And, a couple of those guys. Jack Benner is on this list, and Cannon Ketchings from Indiana originally, from Brownsburg, and now he's coming out of Overtime Elite, but a name people recognize as well. So I've gone way too long here. My dog needs to go outside apparently. So again, thanks for joining me here, and we'll talk to you next time.